Hey Blazers, today I have a bit of a different video for you. Today we're going to do more like a conversational back and forth slash reactions video. And this idea came about because recently on my Instagram, I posted a questions box on my story and I said, how do you guys feel about Aikido? And then I went forward and I clarified to say, you know what, anyone can talk about it, tell me your own personal experiences. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Just in general. Because I actually did Aikido for a little bit when I was in college and I had like my own sort of opinions, but I wanted to see what other people thought about it before I was just like, oh, okay, this is how I feel and this is the end all be all of Aikido. I think having conversations about things can be pretty helpful. So I got a good amount of responses and I want to share them and sort of talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to try to tie it into my own experiences if I can relate to what they're saying. And I'm going to be showing their comments like here or something, hopefully, so then you can see what I'm working on. And also, if you are someone from my YouTube that's watching this, if you check out my Instagram, on my page, I have a bunch of like story highlights. And so I'm currently adding things from the conversation on Instagram straight to the highlight. So if you want to see what the person said and my response that I made in the video, please go check that out. And if you have anything else you want to add to the conversations, whether you are on YouTube or you are on my Instagram looking at this video, please feel free to comment, because I would definitely like to hear about your experiences with this type of martial art. So let's go, and I'm going to start reacting to the comments I got. So let's go. So the first comment that I got was basically saying that it's pretty useless for the purposes of self-defense, but it's overall a pretty art, or it's a beautiful art. And I can definitely agree to a certain extent to this comment, because, well, I myself am used to more of like the hardcore type of, punching somebody in the face or kicking somebody in the head type of martial arts. Aikido is not really like that. From what I experienced when I was a freshman in college, it was very much more of a relaxed or personal growth martial art. So it wasn't something that I was not under the impression that it was supposed to be something where, you're getting like bloody noses and all that stuff. And I do think, while it wasn't something that I like wanted to do for the rest of my life, I do think that it was kind of pretty, like the things that they do, like the throws. I thought there was a certain art to that, and there's an art to like falling properly, making things look good. And so to that comment, I would say, like, yeah, in terms of self-defense, what I learned wasn't like super violent and save your life type of thing, but I do think there are also benefits, because you can learn how to do certain skills you probably didn't know before you started. So that's my response to that. The second comment I got was relating to things like disarms, and that's actually something that I think we did a few of those when I was taking a class, and we used like wooden swords and things like that. And I'm sure if I stayed longer, I would have gotten more experience with other types of disarms. But yeah, a lot of it is like the stuff you might see online where someone, goes like this with a sword and the person like grabs it and, does whatever to disarm the sword and takes down the person or something like that. So definitely a lot of disarms and things that you might not conventionally see or practice in the more like sport karate, sparring types of things. So this next one was essentially saying that he was saying that he's a bit skeptical of the outside applications of it. Like, it's a little bit iffy whether this stuff that they're generally teaching, like as part of the curriculum, is going to work outside of certain scenarios. So if you've ever seen certain Aikido videos or martial arts that are similar, because I'm sure Aikido wasn't the only art that does a similar curriculum, you might see that it's oftentimes two people, or a group of people, and one person will do something like they'll raise their hand and then they'll like lower it down, and all the people that were participating with them will like throw themselves back as if they were like hit by a strong gust of wind or something like that. And you know, I can't say for sure if that's like every Aikido, but you know what, a lot of the stuff, unfortunately, that I've seen online is kind of more theatrical in a way, where yeah, that's not going to be something you're going to defend yourself with in a real life situation. So if you were on campus or something and somebody like, you know, grabbed your wrist, you know, lifting it up and then going like this is not going to make them fall down. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair to say that that's every Aikido school. I don't think I stayed long enough in Aikido to get to that part of the curriculum if it was going to be part of their curriculum. But yeah, that's definitely like a real life thing that happens in certain Aikido schools. I think the most important thing, which I'll get to a little bit later, is being honest with your students and people that are watching and saying, you know what, yes, we're practicing this as part of the martial art, but don't get the wrong idea. It's not going to save you in the streets. I think that conversation is important to have between like a master or instructor and a student. And the same person made another comment, which I thought was interesting, and it was talking about like it really depends on like the relationship between the person that is being like attacked, like the victim per se, and the uki in this example, which is the one that's gonna get like thrown around. And yeah, I've seen a lot of things where in order for something to work, it has to be like 2 or 3 people that are in the same mindset. So you have to have someone that knows they're supposed to like flip or dive roll over when a person does a certain technique. And again, I don't think that's like a bad thing. I think people should totally be able to have fun, but it's yeah, people should be able to have fun, but at the same time, you know, people need to, the person that's running the class needs to make sure everyone knows that we're just doing this for like the culture and the art of it. Like, don't try this at home, basically. So let us be mindful, says. And see, the thing is, like, I would love to be able to like actually see what I'm talking about like right now. Like, I have my camera up, but I have to like look in my camera roll to see what the comment was. So I can't remember like everything. I don't want to butcher anybody's name. So if I don't say your name, I'm sorry. And you'll definitely have credit like over here when I put my pictures up. But let us be mindful, says it looks cool in movies, and I definitely agree. I think for me, coming from Tang Soo Do, which is not necessarily like a violent art, but it is more like hands-on, like there's more like potential of possibly getting hurt because, you know, we're doing like sparring. And in Aikido, at least for what they told me, they don't really do sparring, which is totally fine. You know, it's not the end of the world, but I have seen a lot of stuff in movies that I thought was super cool. And, you know, I never really thought about what type of martial art they were doing. Like when you see somebody doing like a wrist lock or something, you see somebody doing like a cool flip, you know, or someone does something that makes 3 people like backflip away from the person doing the technique. Like, it all looks super cool. And honestly, like, I can't really complain. Like, there is a purpose for almost everything, I think. I mean, that sounds kind of like deep, but like, I think not every person's purpose in martial arts is to be able to like beat somebody to a pulp. I think there's a skill that comes with being able to like be thrown or throw somebody or do really cool techniques. And I think that's totally fine. Personally, I would actually like to learn a couple of those things because that's something that I would like to do for maybe a skit if I was ever fortunate enough to be in a movie. Like, that's pretty cool to be able to throw yourself and not need a stunt double. So yeah, I'd say a lot of like the more hands-on throwing techniques and things are pretty cool in movies, so I would agree to that. Spitfire Kickboxing says wrist chop. Now, I'm not sure what he meant by that, but I've seen so many videos, and you know, I guess you just have to be on that side of the internet or something, because I don't think it's fair to say that all of one thing is this or all of another thing is that, because I'm sure that people are like, oh my gosh, I saw this tongue sudo thing online and it's all garbage. And you know what, you know, as someone that does tongue sudo, like I can't I wouldn't accept that someone would say that all of tongue sudo was bad. So, but when you are on that side of the internet, I think specifically I saw a video where people were doing like wrist locks or wrist grabs, and everybody was like falling over, all ridiculous, and the dude is just like sitting on the floor, like doing absolutely nothing. And if I can put that video into this video somewhere, like over here, that honestly, yeah. But again, I'm still like on the fence on whether this is like in general something that people on Aikido do, or if a lot of the stuff that's being pushed to the forefront is stuff that is over exaggerated because that's what people like to look at. So something to think about. Now, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but it looks like your name is Ryan Ronan. I am not sure, but your name will be right here. And you were essentially saying that sometimes special forces will use Aikido, and definitely, I think at least like one or two people sent me some videos of people doing like Aikido techniques. I can't necessarily relate to it because I wasn't taught anything that was gonna be like something you would use in like the military or something like that. But yeah, if that's part of like the curriculum, that's definitely awesome, and I think more people should be posting about it so less people think that Aikido was a joke, because the general consensus is that Aikido was just a bunch of people dressed in their uniforms pretending to get thrown around. And you know what? If they have stuff that's like really helpful for people in special forces, you know, different branches of like military and such, I think that's good. And I think we should definitely see a lot more of that. So different George, hey George, uh, he was saying that a lot of the stuff is not going to work like outside of the dojo or dojang, whatever you call the place of training for Aikido. A lot of that stuff isn't going to work out if you try it in real life. And to that I'd say, yeah, a good portion of the stuff, at least that I learned, probably isn't going to be helpful outside. But at the same time, I'm not 100% sure that the point of Aikido, or at least the class that I participated in, was supposed to be to defend yourself outside. Like there are certain martial arts that their goal is for like, you know, self-strength, relaxation, you know, self-growth, like peace, sound state of mind, you know, things like that. Like not every martial art is made to learn how to destroy your enemies or something like that. But I would say like as long as the person is actually upfront with you and is telling you like, okay, this particular technique is definitely useful, at least for certain situations, and it's been proven like this is going to be helpful for you, but then also makes that distinction and says, okay, you know what, yes, this is kind of like an in-class thing. If you ever see somebody in the middle of if you ever like are attacked, you know, in the middle of the night on campus or something, don't try to do this technique because it does involve a bit of compliance. So I feel like that conversation is probably really important to have. And as long as you're not telling somebody that's something that's not true, I think that's totally fine. And this person says every martial art, or in all martial arts, there's something to learn. Now, I mean, I haven't tried like every martial art. I've tried like a few, but I would say like just like different classes you might take in school, while you may feel like, you know, maybe if you're an art major or something, you may feel like an English class is useful, there are still going to be some things that you can take from it. So maybe it's going to help you with your spelling, maybe it's going to help you with your grammar, or how to write a paper that you might need to write for like a job application or something. So I would agree that there's probably something you can get from a lot of different martial arts, even if it's not something that is close to what you're used to doing. So I do tongue sudo, and I've done it for probably 11 years now. And so when I was going into Aikido, I think I had one thing in my mind, and that was going to be, okay, I'm curious to see how these people are fighting, you know, what's like, what kind of like hand-to-hand combat things am I going to be learning? And I was surprised to learn that it wasn't like I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, like, I did like the throws because that's something that I really didn't do often, or I don't do often at my dojang. It's just not something that is extremely stressed. And honestly, that's okay. People have their own priorities that they like to stress at their own different schools, even within the same art. So I definitely think, like, from Aikido, assuming these people were decent people and not some type of cult leader that I didn't know about, I definitely liked the throws, and it's something that I would definitely like to, like, use in a skit. Listen, if I was brave enough, I'd attempt to do it on somebody outside, but I think I'd have a pretty high failure rate. But yeah, I definitely got a couple things from Aikido, so I can't say that my whole experience was like terrible or anything like that. So my last comment that's probably gonna make it into this video is from Julian. He's basically saying, like, sometimes, just like any other martial art, you had to make things work. And I'm not sure exactly to what extent you mean, but I can understand that because, you know what, there are things that are in Tang Sudo, much as I want to be like, oh yeah, Tang Sudo is, life. Like, I know there's other martial arts besides Tang Sudo, but like in Tang Sudo, there are things that aren't really meant to be used in the street. Like, not everything is going to be a lesson about how to destroy somebody. Sometimes we do things like forms or one steps that are just part of the curriculum. It's just something that you need to know, like part of the history, just to be a well-rounded, like, black belt or individual in that martial art. And so I would imagine that's probably no different with Aikido. I think a lot of people, when they think about martial arts, are like, oh my gosh, Bruce Lee, oh my gosh, I played Street Fighter before when I was 9 years old, and if I go to a place and they're not doing that, then I don't like it. Um, and that's not really the right way to think about things, but I think, like, a large part of martial arts isn't just fighting and violence. Not everyone goes to do martial arts, whether you're doing something like karate or you're doing like taekwondo. Not everyone wants to go to the UFC and come back with like a cauliflower ear and like 3 teeth missing. So yeah, I think it is what you make about it. You make of it. And if you as an individual do get something from Aikido or another martial art, whether that's just, the fun of it, whether you are, it's helping you to, like, get in better shape, or you want to, like, some friends, when you're building like a rapport with people, I think you can get what you get. And that's good. But at the same time, I think a lot of times people are thinking, when they think about Aikido, they're thinking about that stuff, again, like online, that's like completely ridiculous. And that really doesn't shine very brightly on people that are actually practicing the art for what it is at its core. And that's unfortunate. So even though this is a bit of a different video, I definitely think it's nice to sort of have this conversation. And I'm glad that there were a lot of people that were engaged in conversing back and forth with me. I think that's cool, and that's super healthy when you are, like, making content, to interact with the people that you're producing content for and seeing how they feel about it. And also, like I said before, I didn't do Aikido for very long. I wasn't like a super big fan of it. It took up too much time from my super important courses. But some of you all might have had more experience with it. And I wanted to be like, before I was like, oh, yeah, it was cool. And I learned some cool throwing techniques, and that's pretty much it. I wanted to see, like, what else everyone else had to say about that. And I'm glad to see that there was some participation. So let me know how you feel about Aikido in the comments. If you didn't participate in the question box thing, if you're on Instagram, please hit that follow button. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for more. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!